Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of M&A Insights. My name is Madhur Duggar, and this is my podcast that is dedicated to M&A related topics in the IT services space, which is an area I focus on. Today's topic is going to be about two things. One, how to think about the rate at which an IT service provider should be growing their business. And two, what are the sales and marketing challenges that you have to overcome to be able to grow your business at that rate? Now, obviously, there are many factors that come into consideration, personal factors that come into consideration when an MSP owner chooses to sell their business. But there are also simple financial considerations that are good benchmarks to have when making that decision. Fundamentally, at any given stage, an MSP owner has, I'd say, three choices: continue to operate and grow your business, exit completely and invest your proceeds in public markets, right? Or sell to a private MSP, roll over some equity into the acquiring MSP, invest the rest of it in public markets. And when you choose to continue to operate and grow, you just want to be sure that that is the optimal decision from a financial standpoint. Again, there could be other factors as well, but from a financial standpoint, how do we know that we are making the optimal decision, right? And the answer simply is, are you doing better by doing that versus exiting and investing your money elsewhere? Well, to answer that question, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, what rate of return would I get if I were to exit and invest my money elsewhere? Now, if you were to get a cash exit, all cash, right, and you were to conservatively invest that money in a portfolio of treasuries and the equity market, and you looked at what that return was over the last 20-year period from 2000 on to 2020, 2025, you'd find that on average, that investment strategy would yield an annual return of 6 to 7%. There's a lot of variation around it, and depending on what decade you are in, you could get a very different result. But if you held that money for 20 years, that's what you would earn on average, 6 to 7%. If instead you said, you know what, I'd like to sell to a private MSP, get part of my money in cash, and part of my money I'd like to get as an investment in the equity of the surviving MSP, what would be the return of that? Then you'd find that the returns from that investment strategy, by and large, would translate to a 7.5 to 8% return on that strategy, and that additional return is coming from the rollover of the equity into the private MSP, right? So, big picture, if you want to continue to grow your business, you want to be able to generate a growth rate of your business of anywhere between 6 to 8%. That should be in the back of your mind, a target you want to be able to hit consistently. Now, what do you need to do to be able to get there? And again, there are many different angles to look at this. There are operational challenges you have to overcome, etc. But today we're going to focus on the sales and marketing moats that you have to face, because consistently I find in my conversation with MSPs that this ends up being the challenge that is the most significant. Okay, so let's break this sales and marketing challenge into its sub pieces, right? The first piece I would say is to know your market and pick your market segment. And I'll get into that in a second. The second one is to build out your marketing effort. The third one is to build out your sales effort. And the fourth one is to know when to specialize and push pricing. These are literally the four buckets. And we're going to go into detail in each of these four buckets to realize what the challenges are for each of them. So let's talk about knowing one's market and picking one's market segment, because a lot of people make that fundamental mistake in the beginning. It's essential to understand the size and scope of your customer base. For MSPs, this typically includes small, medium-sized businesses with 10 to 200 employees, right? So we'll go there. And with over 1.2 million such businesses in the US, the key challenge is to focus on a manageable subset. For example, in New York alone, there are 90,000 small, medium-sized businesses in the top 25 towns. But that's simply too large a market size for you, a small MSP with 10 people, to try to wrestle down. So the real focus should be on the 13,000 small, medium-sized businesses that are in the top 25 towns and cities in the New York area that are growing at over 10%, right? So if they're growing, then the chances are that you are going to grow your business along with their growth. So that's 13,000. This smaller client segment should provide enough clients for regional MSPs to sink their teeth while keeping operations manageable. And MSPs should avoid smaller clients generating less than $2,000 in monthly recurring revenue, as they often bring very high operational overhead, limited growth opportunities, higher attrition rates, and greater price sensitivity. MSP buyers should also tend to apply lower valuation multiples to revenue streams with less than $2,000 in managed recurring revenue for the same reasons. And that's why focusing on the 13,000 high growth small, medium-sized businesses with more than 10 employees is kind of a good strategy, because you're automatically weaning away those businesses that are not going to get a great value eventually by a buyer, right? Now, we think that MSPs with fewer than 10 people that do an average job of the rest of the sales and marketing process, but have a good grasp of this market segment, are going to be able to grow at a reasonable rate, right? With that right market niche identified, MSP owners will generally be able to grow their business to about a 25 employee count, or $500,000 in EBITDA. But beyond this, the new clients added will generally not be enough to offset the attrition on a larger portfolio of clients, resulting once again in growth stagnation. So you grow to 25, and what's going to happen now is that your firm has grown, so there's going to be a certain amount of attrition. And now you're not adding clients at a rate that's fast enough to overcome that rate of attrition. That's significant, right? Because the feeding funnel has not changed. The feeding funnel is still producing the same number of new clients per period, but your firm is getting larger, so the attritions are getting larger. So now that feeding funnel is no longer enough to produce that growth. And so you need to up your game, which is with respect to marketing, which is your next moat, all right? Okay, so now marketing is one of the most challenging moats for MSP. In fact, in a recent survey we ran, almost 50% of respondents picked lead generation as the hardest of the 4 sub-processes identified above. And this is the part that has to do with marketing. Lead generation is hard because it requires an MSP to come outside its comfort zone and for the first time build marketing assets, each of which must work well for the entire process to work. So what are these marketing assets? Well, there are some absolutely essential pillars, like a well-designed and SEO-optimized website, which clearly storyboards an MSP's value proposition. That's essential. Email, podcast, and social media outreach campaigns, at least a few of these are essential. Conference attendance and participation, be it getting speaking spots or having presence in terms of a stall over there and having the right people at the stall to get the leads that you need, that's essential. A well-crafted SEO-optimized website is essential for MSPs to attract leads from search engines like Google or AI-powered tools like ChatGPT. Your website should clearly communicate your ability to solve client problems and improve their business outcomes. Additionally, email campaigns and other marketing assets would also need to be a part of your broader strategy to nurture and convert leads. And by the way, storyboarding, basically making the case for why a client should do business with you, is absolutely essential. And it has less to do with what tools you're offering, but more to do with explaining to the client that you understand what their pain point is, and that by the time they've done working with you, those pain points are going to get solved. That's what they want to hear. And it's amazing how many MSPs really have a lot of information about their services and their technology, but don't have this basic storyboard properly laid out on their website. It's worth actually sitting down with someone to properly storyboard out that story to put on your website. Podcasts, I really like as a way to reach out to your client base. I use podcasts, as you can tell, myself to do this. And they represent still an underutilized opportunity for MSPs to build rapport with potential clients. So while podcast downloads might not be massive, you could have a podcast. It might not get thousands of downloads. It's not really critical. The real value lies in the conversations that the podcast generates with the key decision makers, right? So by highlighting expertise and offering valuable insights, MSPs can cultivate long-lasting relationships with potential clients. Think about a podcasting strategy where, in fact, the person who is on the show doing a podcast with you is, in fact, a potential client, right? Now you're talking to them about their business and you're offering to post this on social media as free advertisement for them. So they come to your show, they understand the value of what you're offering, and in the process, you are building a relationship with them. And if you do this well, they could become a client down the road, right? If nothing else, you learn a little bit about how their business works. You've probably been able to get their contact information. You're reaching out to them on a regular basis with your content, and then down the road, hopefully they decide to switch their contract to you. But when executed well, marketing assets like podcasts and like a SEO optimized website will improve lead generation and allow MSPs to grow again. And we think that mastering outreach and lead conversion becomes imperative for MSPs that have 10 to 25 people. Improved outreach and lead generation should allow MSPs to grow again at that 6% rate till they get to about 50 employees. And now they're doing $1 million to $1.5 million in EBITDA, right? And again, you're going to find once you get there that the firm is large enough, the attrition rates that are applied to your client base are now producing attrition that is no longer being replaced with the new clients that are coming in from your better marketing, right? So now you need to really start focusing on the next moat. That moat is sales. And so once again, you have to up your game and create an effective sales team and a sales process. Now, a highly differentiated and scalable sales engine is crucial for generating predictable revenue. Many MSPs rely on word of mouth or referrals, and referrals work really well. But scaling the business is also going to require an engine that's capable of converting leads into clients, regardless of prior awareness of the company, right? So an effective sales process at a very basic level should improve lead conversion rates, resulting once again in higher growth rates and once again allow the MSP to grow to 75 to 100 employees. So you have to decide, as far as the sales is concerned, how do you want to strategize it? Do you want to do sales yourself? Do you want to outsource the sales to an external organization? And there are organizations out there that you can get resources from. There are organizations that can really just offload the sales process from you. I think that neither extreme works that well. In other words, if sales is not your forte, like you shouldn't suddenly start doing sales. And if you outsource all of your sales to an external agency, they really won't know your stories the way you know them. And so they won't be as effective. So I think the real answer is in working with a partner, like an external organization. And I'm happy to recommend great ones that I work with myself. And I think they are very effective. But then really working closely with them, designing the script with them, making sure that they understand your story, checking in on the calls that they're making, seeing how those calls were going, what worked, what didn't, developing a rapport with the person on the other side who is doing that call, right? Engaging with them, making sure that they improve their game. And slowly and surely you're going to see the effectiveness of that come through. One thing I will say is sales is something that takes time. So you have to pick the right team and you have to empower them and believe in them and give them the time they need. I also want to say that generally those MSPs who have already begun to build a niche in any particular area will be able to differentiate what they're offering from other people without necessarily getting into the technology of things. Technology is not what differentiates your service offering. It's knowledge about that industry that you have that's going to differentiate you from the next MSP. When the client realizes this person really understands my industry, that has a very important impact. It's not so much about which is the latest cybersecurity tool that you're offering, right? So those people who do have a niche have an advantage in this sales side because they are able to relate to the stories of their clients and they're able to connect with them at a much more personal level. Finally, I'm going to talk about specialization and the ability to push pricing. So again, once you've mastered sales, as your MSP grows and you grow to the point that you're 75 to 100 people large, once again, you're going to find that the funnel that you have is no longer large enough to make up for the attrition of the existing client base. and that you now need to really specialize in any particular area, and you need to be able to push your pricing as well. So specialization becomes critical at this point. And by the time an employee is 100 employee large, it is likely already extracting most of the benefits from having an effective marketing and sales process, right? Focusing on sectors like healthcare or finance can provide competitive advantages through industry-specific knowledge, compliance, expertise, and client referrals. But I want to say that this is by no means the only sort of set of industries where you can build expertise. Any industry which is large enough, like construction, for example, as long as you spend enough time there and you know the main players in the market and you're regularly attending all the conferences, you're going to begin to develop a game around that industry that is going to gradually get noticed. And people are going to talk about you, and they're going to talk about you in a good way and make referrals for you. And that's when you're going to see that sales process really, really work. Specialization also allows you to charge premium prices and reduce client attrition. And that also adds to profitability and growth. So when done well, these benefits can result in, even a small sector producing more sales because of the greater effectiveness you have in converting these leads, and because of the greater ability you have to push pricing, because presumably you're going to be talking to sectors that have complexity, and they're also going to be of a certain size level where they see the risk of downside, and so they're willing to accept a higher price to protect themselves from that risk. So that basically is, in a nutshell, the journey you have to follow if you choose to go yourself, right? Is you have to sort of linearly go through this process of picking your market, figuring out the right contacts, then developing your marketing, then developing your sales, specializing and pushing pricing. And not every MSP, wants to go through that full journey, which is why at some point they decide, you know what, I'm going to exit. Just bear in mind that when you're very small, you're probably not ideal for a sale anyways, right? But that as you get larger, by the time you're 25 to 50 people large, now you have the scale that if you wanted to exit, you could exit, right? But of course, if you have the ability to grow at a higher rate than 6 to 8%, you probably should continue. And so that's basically the choice that you have to make. And I hope that, as MSPs, as MSP owners and founders kind of make this decision, they at least lay down this sort of very simple, objective framework to measure themselves against when they make this decision of to grow internally or to exit out. And that's all I have to say on this topic. Please stay tuned for further episodes on various topics in this space. My name is Madhur Duggar. If you enjoyed this podcast and you would like to participate in a similar podcast, if you have feedback for me, please write back to me. You can reach out to me over LinkedIn or podcastwithmadhur@gmail.com. That is MADHUR @gmail.com. Thank you.